Hi folks, my name is Janet. I am a writer who also happens to drive tractor trailers across the country. I don't know which of those things I love most. One I'm supposed to do. I think I was born to write. The other I love to do. It suits my soul. I love driving. I love the freedom of it. Right now I am parked in Montgomery, Alabama at a manufacturing facility waiting for something, an assignment to come down the pipe from my employer. But I just wanted to say a couple of things about Jehovah's Witnesses and a word I never use, but I will use it in this video: COVID-19. I don't use the word because the entire drama that erupted in March of 2020 was presented to us by a stage full of liars. And I don't repeat things that liars tell me. I certainly don't use the language liars expect me to use. And the people who presented this COVID drama to us are liars, which is why every week, every month, they change what they want you to feel, what they want you to believe, what they want you to do. God is not a God of chaos, but Satan certainly is. And this has been the most chaotic I've seen the world in my brief lifetime. And I say brief compared to the millennia that human beings have been on this plane. But to get to the point, anyone who is familiar with Jehovah's Witnesses, as I am, I was raised one. My mother was pregnant with me when she was baptized in 1965. At the age of 15, I became one of them officially when I was baptized. But at the age of 26, I left. And I can appreciate the good things I learned from being one of Jehovah's Witnesses. They did give me a superficial familiarity with the Bible. And I say superficial because you learn how to use that New World Translation to support your doctrinal beliefs. They really teach you which scriptures to go to support what you believe. And that can give you the false impression that you are a Bible scholar when you're not. I didn't realize that until after I left. It's easy to feel biblically smart if you're a witness, though, because you are biblically smarter than the average person. But if the average person has no Bible knowledge, then it doesn't take much Bible knowledge for you to feel that you are smarter biblically than you actually are. And so that's Jehovah's Witnesses, and that's what I was. But there was still a beauty in being raised in that lifestyle. When as a teenager, my friends didn't curse, smoke, drink, do drugs. When we were at parties with all young people, there was no adult to supervise us, and there was no making out, certainly no premarital sex going on. You know, we listened to proper things on the radio and TV, things that we can find that were fairly decent. And that was easier to do 30 years ago than it is today. But I was with a good, decent lot of young people growing up. And that wasn't the case with all of the young people associated with the organization at that time, just as it isn't the case with any organization anywhere. But I was fortunate enough to have as friends and as companions and associates people who lived their religion. They really lived their religion. So I can respect them for that, and I can appreciate having been raised that way. So what do I have to say about them that's not flattering? The thing about it, the witnesses have a practice that I have received, and that when I was a witness, I sometimes gave to other people, and I'm ashamed of that now. But it's the practice that they call disfellowshipping. Others might call it shunning or religious ostracizing. And simply with Jehovah's Witnesses, what that means, that's one of the most serious things they do. If they see you walking down the street, the two of you can have eaten at the same dinner table for years, or you can have been a babysitter for the people who are passing you by. You can have walked door to door with this individual every Saturday for years, but they'll pass you by and pretend that they don't see you, or fix their face in such a way that they let you know they see you, but they are deliberately ignoring your presence. I received that. My best friend, a girl I love to this day, I remember telling her that I was leaving, and she begged me, don't stay away longer than 2 years, and I said I wouldn't. Of course, that was 30 years ago. But I never stopped loving her. She never did anything to me. But in my madness to get away, I hurt her. I'll admit that, because I was only thinking about myself. I needed to get out. And I needed to get out because I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And I'm not proud of that, because it wasn't a good thing I was leaving to do. I wanted to commit fornication. I had been propositioned by 2 people, and I wanted to try each to see which I liked. And it was disappointing. But here's how I did it. I went to the elders and I told them, I've been propositioned. I'm interested, but I don't want to do it with the witness name on me. So I'm asking to be disassociated. And that, folks, is a voluntary act. You are voluntarily, officially disconnecting yourself from the organization. Well, they said no, they wouldn't let me do that. And it was out of love that the elders said no. So I went away and came back. And I lied to them. And I said I had committed fornication. They said, well, did you like it? I said, yes. They said, will you do it again? I said, probably. Now, I said those things because I knew that saying it would get me disfellowshipped. It would get me what I wanted, which was to be officially disconnected from them. And why that? Because I knew I was going to go into the community, and there was going to be at least 2 people I slept with outside of marriage. And I didn't want that to get around and somebody go door to door as a witness, and then someone else says, oh, I don't want to hear your message because I know one of your people, and Janet Walker, and she committed fornication, so you guys are as phony as the churches. I didn't want a witness to experience that. I wanted the witness to be able to say, well, she's not one of us anymore. Because at that time, I still believed they were the truth, which is what they call themselves. And I didn't want to be responsible for preventing someone else from hearing the truth, because of me. So that is why I did it. And I really still respected the organization enough not to want them attached to me while I went and committed fornication. But it soon became apparent to me that that is not the real reason I left. For 2 years before that, my faith had been eroded, my faith in the organization, because I went to work for a newspaper, which meant that's an unusual occupation for a witness, because it meant I was deliberately exposing myself as a copy editor to the thoughts of people who were not Jehovah's Witnesses, the deep musings and philosophical beliefs of those who weren't witnesses. So I did that work for 2 years, and so slowly I was leaving them anyway. The propositions were just is it the coup de grace? The coup d'etat? I don't know. But it was the final thing that knocked me out of the witness ring. And the only reason I stayed on for 2 years is because I didn't want to lose my best friend. And I knew that if I left, for whatever reason, I would lose her friendship, her association. So when I finally did leave, I did lose her friendship. And for a long time, I was sick for that, because we had such an easy, clean, wholesome, fun-loving friendship. To this day, it remains the easiest friendship I ever had. And if you can have a platonic soulmate relationship with someone of the same sex, then that is what we had. I thought we were soulmates, and so she would use that word too to describe us. Later, I went and did things that were not wholesome, that were not clean, with other people that I call friends. But for her, it remained in my heart and in my mind a clean, wholesome relationship. And to this day, it is still that, despite my past, despite things that I did in the past that could easily have tainted how I saw the world. But I don't mean to ramble so much. At 26, I left. Shortly thereafter, I got pregnant and had a boy. And I love my son. And so that was a good slip up. Not anything I planned. And in fact, it came about in a way that I would not have wanted. But I'm glad that my son was a result of that. Now here I am. In 2014, I submitted my life to Christ. In 2013, my granddaughter was born, and that made me say, you know, some things I am doing, I should not be doing as a grandmother. My granddaughter deserves a good grandmother, a decent grandmother. So I was pretty much a decent person before that, but there was one big thing I was doing that was not decent. And so I had to stop doing that, and I did. And then the following year, I submitted my entire life to Christ. And it's been a process. It's been an evolution toward living a clean life. And now, thanks to the Lord, you know, I feel real good about my life. Not perfect, not at all. In fact, because I feel as if I'm more aware of the holiness of the Lord, I realize how holy I am not. How much grace He has given me just to deal with me, you know, just to condescend to deal with me. So protecting me through this madness of 2020 and now 2021 is one of the blessings He's given me. And I know it's because He knows that when nobody's looking, when I'm here alone in my truck, or when I'm out here with all these men, He knows that I'm still trying to serve Him, that I'm still trying to keep even the unseen corners of my life clean. That wasn't always the case even after I was saved in 2014. I can't say that. And I had some slip-ups that were mental. I never slept with anybody since 2013. I haven't been with anybody, and it's 2021 now. But you don't always have to be with somebody else to commit sin. Y'all know what I'm talking about. So now, thanks to the Lord, all of this is under control. I got rid of some of my high places. If you're familiar with Israelite history in the Old Testament, you know what I'm talking about. Some of Israel's good kings, some of the ones that God called good kings, still did not tear down the high places, which were groves that the Israelites used to worship false gods. And when new kings came in, some of them tore down the high places, some of them did not. And for a long time, I had high places in my life that I had not torn down. One of those involved books that I had published, a novel in particular that was just so bad I had stopped promoting it a long time ago. Oh, it was well written. The story was well done, well crafted, the characters were well drawn. Story was intriguing, fascinating. You had a crazy girl at the center of it, and people liked it. But it was so explicit in a few chapters. And throughout the entire book, her language was profane because it was written in first person present. So you never left her. So that everything she thought and did, no matter how perverse it was, you were there with her when she did it. And of course I wrote that, you know, after I left Jehovah's Witnesses and after I stepped into the world and did my thing, which I did for 23 years. But I had to take that novel down. And I didn't do that right away. In fact, I just did that this year. I stopped promoting it a long time ago. I stopped promoting it even before I became a servant of Christ. But certainly after I submitted my life to Christ, I didn't promote the book at all. Took it down off of my websites and all of that. But I didn't take it down off of the internet. Didn't promote it and thought I could get away with that. But as long as that book was out there in the universe, I was plagued by lustful thoughts. Only when I took it down did this demon of lust leave me that had been plaguing me on and off for 25 years. I'm not kidding. And I got advice from someone that I trust who, respecting my craft as a writer, told me not to take it down. Because she knew it was a good book. She knew it was well written, and she knew it wasn't my life. So she knew how well I had crafted a very believable other life in that book. So she didn't want me to take it down. But I for a change, I didn't listen to her advice, which I knew came from a good place in her heart. But I didn't listen to her because I knew as a Christian that I had to take that book down. I did, and my life has been great since then. So it's been a path toward evolving and changing that I have experienced. But that's not what I came aboard to say. I just wanted to give you all a little background about who I was, who I am. One of my books does remain up. Amazed by Her Grace is the name of it. And I love this novel. It's a 3-book novel. So if you get a chance, download it and enjoy it. It's the best thing I've ever written. And if you are my friend, those of you who know me, if you are my friends and you haven't read that book, you can't really call yourself my friend because that book represents who I am. It's the one thing on the planet that I wanted to do before I died, and I did. And I received responses for that book that I had always wanted for anything I wrote. The same kind of responses I had when I read good novels as a young person are the kinds of responses people have given me for Amazed by Her Grace, and I can't be more grateful for that. I don't know whether grace still belongs in the high places realm, but I don't intend to tear that down right now unless the Lord tells me I have to. I think I can get away with leaving that one up because there are choices. I can live with the choices that my character makes at the end of the book. But anyway, okay, back to the reason I'm doing this video. Jehovah's Witnesses are practiced at shunning family members. This disfellowshipping arrangement is such a deep part of what they do, what they believe, that I know from experience, from knowing the lukewarm witnesses I used to know, that they could be doing all other kinds of stuff that they're not supposed to be doing. But when they see a disfellowshipped person, oh, they snap into place and instantly become the most faithful witness you want to meet. So they shun with a ferocity. That's how much it's embedded, inculcated into them, that this is what you do to show your loyalty to Jehovah God. If a person has been disfellowshipped, it means they deserve it, that they've been rebellious against Jehovah. You don't need to know why they were disfellowshipped. Just know that the elders thought they should be. That's all you need to know. And to show your loyalty to Jehovah, you ignore that person. And they do it. I know of a young lady who walked up to the car of her own mother to greet her mother happily, and her mother floored the accelerator to get out of the parking lot so that that daughter could not speak to her. I know that for a fact. This isn't just a rumor. So this is the kind of brainwashing that the witnesses get. Good mothers and fathers so believe what the Watchtower Society tells them about their own children that they would kill the relationship that they have with their children in order to support this disfellowshipping arrangement. And in doing so, they emotionally kill their own children. So we shouldn't be surprised, any of us, if Jehovah's Witnesses are now shunning people who don't have vaccines, family members who don't have vaccines. And I have heard that this is what is going on. First, the witnesses bought the lie that they needed to take a protein spikes shot into their bodies. Many of them have taken it because the Watchtower Society said it was okay. And if the Watchtower Society says it, then Jehovah said it, and they're going to do it. I have been associated with churches in Texas where the ministers knew right away that there was a great medical hoax going on across the world. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that people have actually died because something has attacked their respiratory systems. I know that. I am not belittling that. I am not dismissing that. What I am saying is that we also know that thousands, literally thousands of people were misidentified on purpose sometimes as individuals who died with this thing when in fact they had not. So because there were lies to augment the numbers of people who died from this thing, then I don't believe most of what the authorities say about it. And I found ministers last spring in 2020 who knew, as I knew, that number one, I didn't need to wear a mask, that I wasn't going to get sick if I didn't wear a mask, that I wasn't going to contaminate anyone else, that I needn't stay 6 feet apart from anybody. I knew that because the Lord let me know that in my spirit. And when I had a moment of doubt last March, because people everywhere around me, people I respected, were afraid, the Spirit said to my spirit, go back to where you were at the beginning. You have nothing to fear receiving or giving. And I promise you all, that is where I remained from that point until now. So I always tell people, I didn't go through a pandemic. Other people might have, but I didn't. A real pandemic, you don't have to turn on the TV to find out. You would know it simply from opening the door of your home if you were in a real pandemic. But if I knew this, and these ministers in Texas and John MacArthur in California, and in Texas you have Pastor Rodriguez in Wilmer, you have Pastor G. Craig Lewis in North Richland Hills, you have the pastors in Canada who so knew what the Lord was telling them that they were not afraid, that they led their congregations same as usual, but were locked up for it in socialist Canada. If they knew that there was nothing they needed to be afraid of, why didn't Jehovah's Witnesses leadership know? Aren't they the ones that are supposed to be this faithful and discreet slave that they call themselves, that Jesus is using to feed the world? Aren't they the ones? Aren't they supposed to be no part of the world? Aren't they supposed to be led by the same God who parted the Red Sea and led the Israelites with what appeared to be neon or electricity before we had such? Aren't they serving the Most High God? Now, if they really were, why didn't he let them know what he let little old me and other people know? Just something to think about. And this is not me elevating me at all. Honestly, and I hope I can make that clear. I don't boast in anything because everything comes from the Most High God. If there was any insight into this drama, medical drama, then it's because of the Lord. But these ministers I'm talking about, they, at least some of them, did have God's Spirit enlightening them. I was just fortunate enough to find them, or blessed enough to find them online, and I thank God for that, because I was able to visit North Richland Hills, the Adamant Believers Council under Pastor Lewis. And believe you me, I cried when the man came and spoke to me, because I had watched these people for 6 months online on YouTube every Sunday. The same beautiful black people meeting every Sunday, not sick, not masked, not distanced from one another, and not spewing hatred against white people. In fact, Pastor Lewis is adamantly against BLM, which I say stands for bowel movement. And I loved that he was. Here was a black minister who had not lost his mind, as all the others seemed to have done last year. Here was a black minister not steeped in racism or not stewing with hidden racism that came to the fore last year. He wasn't fooled. He knew, as I knew, that the gospel has no color. that in every nation the man that fears God and works righteousness is acceptable to him. And anyone who comes to me with a pro-black Christianity, you can't come to me with Christianity. You don't have Christ's Christianity. So I was very blessed to find Pastor Lewis. He was the one black minister I found on the planet. I found. That doesn't mean he's the only one, but the only one I found who knew that he and his congregation didn't need to stay separated from each other and stay home and mask up and of course get vaccinated, so-called vaccinated. So I love him for that, and I know he was led by Spirit on that, because if you look at the rest of the world, including the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, you'll see that the rest of the world cowered in fear, shut down their worship services, and I just don't know what to say about that. And even when churches opened back up, Jehovah's Witnesses remained zoomed up. Zoom, a company that puts money into the hands of China, by the way. There's just so much with China. I'm not geopolitically literate, so I'm not going to comment further than that. I just have a suspicion that China has so much that we need to pay attention to that we are not going to pay attention to, because for one thing, the China-loving media doesn't want you to. But all right, I just received a message from my employer telling me something, so I'm going to hang up. I'm going to bring this video to an end now. But I just want to say this. Oh, I do have one last thing to say. Something happened that hurt me deeply about 2 months ago. A friend that I had made when I left the organization, and that's what the witnesses call their community. They call it the organization. But anyway, after I left the organization, I did meet a woman that I loved very much, and we misbehaved together. But we each grew up quickly. She went and lived her life, married, had a child, another child, all of that. I went and lived my life, but I always loved her. I never stopped, and always said that she would be my sister friend, until the end of our lives. When she called and told me that her father died, without calling her, I grabbed flowers, ran to her hometown, and went to her home, her mother's house, and was promptly removed from the house by another relative, an older relative, who came from the back of the house and said, "Janet, I love you, you know that, but it's something like you should be ashamed of yourself for coming to this house without being vaccinated." And as soon as I realized what the relative was saying, I grabbed my things and apologetically said, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it," and I left. My friend came out, to apologize for the what happened. But I know that everything they didn't do it out of malice. They didn't do it out of meanness. They did it out of fear. And so I could only feel love and pity for them. The relative who came out was a retired medical doctor. Says that she's a Christian. She says she's a Christian, and I'm thinking, why then aren't you vaccinated with what I'm vaccinated with? If we are both Christians, where's your faith? I'm living in a land of Goshen. Why aren't you? But I didn't say that. It was their home. People have a right to be afraid if they want to be. Her father supposedly died from that thing, although he had about 3 other things that could have killed him. So I didn't bring that up either. And I think the father was vaccinated, so was the mother. So if everybody's vaccinated in the house, why are you all afraid of me? Doesn't your vaccine work? But I left, and as I was driving, I was praying to the Lord and saying, "Lord, please help me not to take that the wrong way. In other words, don't let me become angry at them. Don't let me become resentful or hateful. Instead, I pray to you that the spirit of fear leave their home so that nobody can get attacked in my wake and I get charged with it. And I'm not laughing because, that they're silly or anything like that. Or I'm not laughing because it's a light matter. That was a very serious moment. But I remember saying, why didn't that hurt me as much as it could have? I mean, that was a hurtful thing. I went with a good heart. And, I didn't even think about the fact that I needed to put on a mask or be afraid and get something. I wasn't thinking about all of that because that's not my life out here on the road as a driver. But I remember realizing that the reason that didn't hurt me is because that is the treatment I have received as a former Jehovah's Witness for 20-something years now. Being told I can't be in a home, or being put out of a home, or having somebody around the corner in a hallway of a home wanting to come out and tell me to leave, because even though I'm there because someone has died that I loved and that loved me, I shouldn't be in a witness home in the wake of a death. I have experienced all of that. So to walk into this situation with my dear friend and to be removed from her house because I wasn't vaccinated, well, that's the same as being disfellowshipped, being treated as a disfellowshipped one. So those of us who are former witnesses who have received that shunning treatment, we should never participate in what the world is making some members of itself do to other members of itself. Don't shun people because they didn't take the protein spikes jab. It's not a safe shot, and they have a right to refuse it. If you want to take it, and if you have taken it, we're not ostracizing you. That was your right, and we respect your right. Respect our right. And if you are a witness and you are shunning family members because they refuse to take the shot, then you are falling right in with what you're used to doing, which is disfellowshipping people. Furthermore, if you are Jehovah's Witnesses and you fell for the madness of March 2020, which is the beginning of the receiving of the mark of the beast, then you have just shown the entire world that you are not the religion of truth that you want others to think you are.